to thank everyone at IdeaWave, Morgan, Dave, Chris, and it's good to be here. I'm a neurofeedback technician, and I'd like to talk to you today about some of the things I've seen in the last several years doing that work. But mostly, I'm here to talk to you about something that should be patently clear to each of us, and yet something that we don't seem to see day after day. There is no normal. There's no such thing as mentally ill people, in that we seem to have this notion that mentally ill people are all out there scratching at the window like zombies coming to get us. Well, guess what? They are us. We've all eaten the brains. That's my inflammatory statement. Now let's get stuck in. The definition of autism. Taking something easy. What is it? Well, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, version 4TR, is one of the major medical reference for that sort of thing. Describes it as, and I'll paraphrase, at least two of, might even add some examples, really bad at non-verbal behaviors. Can't look in the eye, awkward body posture, etc. I don't know, teenagers? No peer relationships that have the same developmental level. I mentioned my fiance is 25. Doesn't spontaneously share the enjoyments of others. Points out objects of interest to other people, etc. Are there any accountants in the house? Lacks social and emotional reciprocity. Doesn't participate in simple social play or games. Prefers solitary activities. Are there any engineers? Autism also includes one of these, a delay in or lacking spoken language, unless they mime, really, honestly. I'm just going to avoid jokes about mimes not being mentally ill. Marked impairment in the ability to initiate or sustain a conversation with others, like, I don't know, shy people. Stereotyped or repetitive use of language or idiosyncratic language, like the guy in your office who just won't stop talking in movie quotes. Lack of varied or spontaneous make-believe play or socially imitative play. Well, pretty much anyone over the age of 5. It also has one of these, an overfocus on a few stereotyped or restrictive interests, like anyone who collects model trains, for instance, or an inflexible adherence to specific non-functional routines or rituals. Most guys during playoff season. Persistent occupation with parts of objects. Most guys, period. Repetitive motor movements, hand flapping, complex whole body movements. Again, most guys during playoff season. Jokes aside, what we see here is that fundamentally the definition of autism depends on a subjective analysis of whether a preset number of indicators are present and insufficient severity. So what causes autism? We don't know. So instead, we define it by its symptoms. But these symptoms are not just specific to autistic people. If you map these symptoms throughout our society, they would be spread all over the place. And the point of my jokes is to point out that we all know someone who's got at least a few of these symptoms. The definition of many syndromes, from autism, ADHD, OCD, are all very similar. They're a collection of symptoms which are spread throughout the general population, which, when they occur in sufficient number, constitute a syndrome. If you have 8 of these, for example, you have a diagnosis. If you have only 4 instead of 8, you're just fine. If you have 6, you're a computer scientist. So what we're really looking at for each of these syndromes is a bell curve, from nothing to many. And there's a ridiculous little line drawn down one edge of the bell curve. And everyone on that side of the line, you're autistic. Everyone on this side, you're fine. And the funny thing is that if you get a list of all the symptoms, of all the syndromes, we could each of us check off, at least one of us, personally, and probably more. So we are, more or less, all mentally ill. And, you know, there's a bunch of people here saying, I'm fine, what does this idiot know? Well, let's be clear, I'm not an authority. I'm not a doctor or a psych anything or a priest or what have you. I don't diagnose any of these, but I do stand by the first rule of scientific inquiry. I know what I see. And I do neurofeedback, as I said, and in neurofeedback, we look at the brain as being just that, a diverse and very delicate collection of structures that work in complex coordination with each other. We attempt to find out, either by asking about symptoms or through observation of EEG patterns, what that person has going on in their noggin. And when we see brainwave or symptom patterns, we understand that an area of the brain may not be working effectively. What we see, almost invariably, is what I've just described. Everyone has at least a few kinks in their brain. Some have 2 things on the OCD scale and 3 things on the anxiety scale, maybe a phobia or 2. Others might hover on a clinical definition of one or more of the syndromes. Still others are so mentally healthy it's almost annoying. We'll get back to that. The point is that there is, in effect, no normal. We are all more or less mentally ill. And saying that is one of the most powerful things you or I will ever do. We almost all write off, push away, deny those things which make us different from those around us. We try and blend in. And that's the big lie. There's nothing to blend into. We're all pretending to be a normal that just doesn't exist. So stop pretending. Maybe you're a hand washer. Maybe you really don't care about people's feelings that much. Maybe spiders scared the snot out of you. Maybe you can't concentrate on anything but a few very specific topics. Maybe you'd much rather deal with a machine than a person. Go ahead, say it. Say it to yourself, say it out loud, say it to your friend. Discuss it at the water cooler, snack machine, locker room. Yeah, they'll look at you funny. They might even tell you how they're broken. When you stop hiding, it's incredibly freeing. And people see that and want that opportunity. And all of a sudden, all that energy you were using to hide your brokenness can actually be used to deal with it in a constructive manner. So why do we close our eyes to this stuff in the first place? Another of the myths we have is, besides I'm normal, a common understanding that our brains are just this big lump of stuff on top of our bodies. We're all pretty well versed in how diverse our musculature is. We go to the gym and it's an ab day, or legs, or arms, or fat-burning, thigh-toning, butt-tweaking cardio class. But our brains just are. They sit in our heads, we don't bother them, they don't bother us. Yet every scientific study in the last 50 years points out that the brain is as complex, or more so, than the body, as diverse, as prone to damage, and as capable of retraining and repair. Perhaps it's our inability to actually see inside our own heads that causes this blindness to complexity. Or perhaps it's the very human tendency to close our eyes to things over which we feel we have no power. And modern medicine has really very little idea of why most mental illness occurs. We have a few guesses, some good leads. We know that there's often a complex interaction of genetic and environmental factors that leads to that. An inborn predilection pushed by outside forces. And let's face it, it's a lot easier to say I'm broken if there's a possibility of being fixed. We aren't at this point really very good at dealing with mental illness at all. Our methods for dealing with most mental illness are, for the most part, simply symptom management. Some better, some much worse, some simply trade one set of symptoms for another. But I believe that the journey to health is not just about talking about what's wrong. You've got to know where you're going so that you know when you get there. So what does it look like when our brains are working well? Well, one of the things we see in neurofeedback, and no, it's not an advertisement, is that how people look when they start to lose some of their mental illnesses. You know that kid in high school you just couldn't stand? Golden child. A little bit like her. Talented, intelligent, caring, happy, thoughtful, spontaneous, creative, focused. It's pretty much what it looks like. At least that's what I see in some people. We have this amazing tool in our heads. It's truly incredible. And we essentially let it rot because we don't know how to fix it. Perhaps because we felt that mental illness was just something there that we could cull from the herd by letting the weak die off, or by putting them in institutions. Well, guess what? We all have to deal with it. The good news is, we know more and more. New imaging, genetic testing, a better understanding of the brain's electrical systems. They're all creating amazing new possibilities. And some of those possibilities are close at hand, some are here now. There's no way we have all the answers yet. We don't even know all the questions. What we can see, however, is the possibility of wellness. An end to the time of hiding. I noted the TELUS campaign with some. It's great that we're talking about the freaks a little more. But I think we need to be talking about us. And the possibility that we may each become the person that we know exists inside of us and become that golden child. Comic books, spy novels, the regular guy thrust into a dangerous situation. Harry Potter, all classic tales of the ordinary person who discovers something powerful within themselves. It's attractive because deep down, we all know that we have something more inside us. Something that we can't reach, something that's broken. Well, get ready to become that better you. If you can start to look clearly at who you are, take a moment, figure out how you are mentally ill. Then you can watch as the science develops. And you can say, hey, that's me. Oh, that'll work. And you have an opportunity to become that superhero we all dream of. Thank you.